Hi, my name is Dr. Kara Jefferson, and I am the DNP Program Director here at Frontier Nursing University. And this is our Q&A session where I'll go over some basic things about our program. I'll show you in the next slide, and then you'll have a chance to ask questions. So, our mission here at Frontier Nursing University is to provide accessible nurse midwifery and nurse practitioner education that integrates the principles of diversity, equity, and inclusion. We transform healthcare by preparing innovative, ethical, compassionate, and entrepreneurial leaders to work with all people with an emphasis on rural and underserved communities. So, there are a couple key pieces of this statement that I always like to highlight during these sessions because it is who we are. And so we're looking at the words accessible, nurse midwifery, and nurse practitioner education. And then we prepare innovative, ethical, compassionate, and entrepreneurial leaders to work in the rural and underserved communities. Those are important because we know that most of the people who are coming to Frontier are coming because either you have seen our mission in action or you know somebody who's been to Frontier and you truly want to integrate all of those principles into what you do. But more so, we know that you already have some kind of ethical standing. What we do is take the skills that you're already coming into us with and we build upon those so that you can become an entrepreneur or a leader with our DNP program. And that's really the whole point. So in this session, we will cover why FNU, why you should get a DNP, what the program of study kind of looks like, the admission criteria, the DNP project, how to get started with the application process, and then we'll talk a little bit about what DNP professional advising looks like in one of the project courses. For those of you who don't know, at Frontier Nursing University, we are a distance education program. We have done distance education for tons and tons of, it feels like tons and tons of years. And so we know what we're doing when it comes to distance education. It's not something that we started right before COVID. This has been something that we have done from the beginning with our program. We also have what is known as the culture of caring. And pretty much the culture of caring has five elements, and those five elements are all about respecting the people around you, being showing professionalism, and just treating one another with the respect. It doesn't matter if you're a student, your faculty, or staff, we're all coming from the same level playing field, and we're coming at this as we want you to be the best version of yourself all the time. And when you're your best version and we're our best version, we can do great things together. The great thing about distance education is that your home community becomes your classroom. So you can study in your living room or in your kitchen or while you're at your best friend's house after having dinner or whatever the case may be. That's the beauty of distance education. As long as you have the right technology, it works. And you can pretty much do it at your own time. I will say in the DNP program, we have both synchronous and asynchronous learning times. But in general, we let you know all of this in advance so that you can prepare. And there are generally recordings that you can always go back and watch of the live sessions. The other thing we do here at Frontier that makes us unique is that we have something called DNP Frontier Bound, where we ask our students to travel to our campus in Versailles, Kentucky, for an orientation. And that orientation is 2.5 days in person, unless you are one of our companion students who's returning to come back to Frontier and have been actively enrolled at Frontier in the past 2 years. That's a different process. So I just mentioned our campus in Versailles. For those of you who don't know, Versailles is located about 10 minutes right outside of Lexington, Kentucky. So we are really close to that Lexington airport. And very, very convenient for most people. So these are just a few pictures around campus. The picture at the bottom right is the sign that you see as you're coming onto campus. The picture on the top left is the dining hall where a lot of our students tend to spend a lot of time because it's a great space to get to know other people. That's where our gift shop is located, our fitness center, all of those things. So these are just a few pics of the overall campus. So, what have we done? Well, like I said, we have lots of experience in nurse midwifery and family care. We have students and alumni that represent every state in the United States. We also have some of our graduates who are abroad and doing great things abroad. We've had well over 10,000 graduates at this point. And like I said, we have that experience in education, but we've also won several awards. So we have gotten honor roll in 2024 for the great colleges to work for, but we've been recognized for 4 consecutive years. We have been a 7-time winner of the Insight into Diversity, Higher Education in Diversity, or the HEED Award. We received the AACN 2023 Award for Inclusive Excellence, Belonging, and Sustainability in Nursing Education. And we were named an academic honoree for the 2024 Healthy Work Environment Award presented by Sigma Theta Tau, International Nursing Society. So we continue to do great work because we want this to be a place where you come and you feel comfortable. And when you leave, and while you're here, you feel proud of what we're doing. So, how do we support you? Well, we have tons and tons of support. Support is not something that I ever really worry about coming from the faculty or staff to the students because there are so many avenues that we can use to do that. So, there's student to student support. You are free to reach out to any student current um, in the university and ask them for help. We also have online student groups. So when students come to Bound, they sometimes form their own Facebook group or WhatsApp group so that they can keep in touch with each other and then continue to support one another as peers. Students can also use faculty as mentors. We have a program that allows you to do that. There are tons and tons of support that you can get from our library. Yes, even though our library is located online, we do truly have the best librarians in the whole country who are ready to assist you. But we also have a small library on campus that you can see, and you can also check books out that are journals out that maybe we don't have with us at our university, but we can get that on interlibrary loan. And then we have a diversity, equity, and inclusion office that has many different student interest groups. We call those student SIGs, and there's one for just about everybody. A few of them include students of color SIG, a neurodiversity SIG, um, and then there's also a veterans group. And then we also every year offer a diversity impact conference where students, former students, anybody from anywhere can come, and these are just some of the many ways that we support you. But then we have another whole group of people. So, as DNP program director, I am always generally available for DNP students throughout the day to talk about any issues, help you troubleshoot, look at your plan of study. But once you get into the courses, you have a course coordinator who manages all of the courses, and you also have course faculty within those courses. So once you're in our courses, you may be assigned a course faculty who is the person who is grading all of your work, or it may be the course coordinator. It just depends on the division of labor. You are also assigned an academic advisor, and your academic advisor really helps you to solidify your plan of study. They're also your first point of contact, and they reach out and they check on you if you tell them that you're struggling with a concept or you need a little bit of extra support. They're generally the first other line, the staff line of support for students. We have financial aid officers who let you know what is the financial impact of you getting your DNP. How is that going to affect you? Can you get a loan? We have our credentialing coordinators for the DNP. We are fortunate that we have one credentialing coordinator who takes care of credentialing all of our DNP sites for the project. And then we have a wonderful IT team who is here to support you from a distance to help make sure that your technology is running properly and troubleshoot any needs that come up as you are working through your program. So this is my favorite part of this. So why should you even want to get a DNP? So remember, the DNP is a Doctor of Nursing Practice degree, and it is a clinical doctorate. You have options. You can choose to go and get a PhD, which is more research focused, or you could go and get an educational doctorate, which is focused just on education theory. But the great thing about the DNP is you get a little bit of each of those. And when I say research, I mean it in that you're not doing the huge deep dive that you might do for a research dissertation where you're doing this for 5 years. But what you get in our DNP is you go and you dig into the literature for the most current best practices, and you become an expert in those best practices so that you can take those and use them immediately in your clinic. And that's what makes it so special. So our DNP allows you to teach at the end of this. It also allows you to do some of the things that you would if just in case you wanted to actually be that research scholar. You can continue to become that expert just like you would with a PhD. Sometimes I'm even asked, well, I'm a midwife, so why would I get a DNP when there's like at least one or two schools out there who offer a doctorate of midwifery? And my answer to that question is the DNP is more broad and more focused. We do not name our DNP a DNP in family nurse practitioner or a DNP in psychiatric mental health. We just say that when you come to Frontier Nursing University, you are getting a DNP that is going to prepare you to be a leader in the healthcare field. You will have a course that focuses on it's called Nurses Educator. It focuses on nursing education. You'll have a leadership course. You'll have a course where you learn financials of business and how to be an entrepreneur if you haven't started your own clinic or want to start your own clinic. And so all of our courses build upon each other and culminate with you having a very, very vast knowledge of quality improvement, sometimes known as performance improvement theory, because we know that it takes an average of 17 years to implement new knowledge in clinical practice, which is a huge problem. That's not what our patients need. That's not what our communities need. And so we need to be sure, as advanced practice providers, that we are giving people the care that they truly deserve. And the DNP degree allows you to take that 100,000-foot lens and look at the world and healthcare in a whole new light. Like I said, while you are getting your DNP, you are actively applying all of the principles that we teach you in clinical practice, and it's a terminal degree. So those people out there who are like, I've always wanted a terminal degree, this is why you should get a DNP, and you should get that DNP with us here at FNU. Our admissions criteria and requirements are actually quite simple. You have to hold a master's degree, either MSN, Master of Science in Nursing, and Master of Nursing, or a Master of Science in Nursing or a related field. You must have a current active RN license in one of the states in the United States with no encumbrances. You must have active certification as a nurse midwife or a nurse practitioner. You must have a 3.0 grade point average, and you must be able to successfully pass a background check. So I think all of those things are easily doable for the majority of people who want to go and get this terminal degree. So our program of study. We have a postmaster's DNP program of study, which is 30 credit hours, and it is structured so that you take your courses, if you're doing the full-time plan, in 6 terms in 18 months. There are some people who may not come in as a postmaster's DNP. They may come in as what we call a companion DNP, meaning they may have taken some of our DNP courses earlier in their program of study at Frontier. And so the number of credits that you have on top of like is not actually, you end up with 30 because we're counting those. But just when I get to the next slide, I'll point out those things. But just know that that is going away at the where we're accepting those courses at the end of next year, 2026. So a little bit about us and our terms. We have 4 terms in a year: winter, spring, summer, fall. Each term truly is 13 weeks, but in that 13 weeks, you have 11 weeks of active class time, study time, and then we submit your grades, and then you have 2 weeks off where we're encouraging you to go and spend time with your family and spend time with your friends and do all of the things that help to rejuvenate you because it's really, really important. And just to note, we have the asterisks there because the programs of study are subject to change prior to your admission in the DNP. And I just want to reiterate, our program of study is for full time, 6 terms, 18 months, but we generally are the people who come to our program are active clinicians who are working. And so we generally encourage people to get on the part-time plan of study. But again, we'll cover all that when you come to campus for the Bound experience. So here are our didactic courses. There are 6 of them, and they're listed here. The 3 that I was talking about were DNP 801, which was formerly PC 713, DNP 802, which is formerly PC 702, Epi and Biostats, and DNP 804, which was formerly PC 718, which was evidence-based practice. Those are the 3 courses that if you attended Frontier in the past, you may have taken those. We will accept those courses if you took them here until, like I said, the end of next year. Otherwise, you are actively applying these courses and they build upon each other. You need a real good foundation of all of these in order to go into the project courses. There are 4 project courses. We as faculty like to look at these as one giant course instead of 4 small courses because they flow right into the other. But because of the way that our terms are built, we have to separate them and give them all a certain number of credit hours because you're also earning your clinical time as you are actively working in the project. It's important, the most important thing to know is that your time spent with patients on your project count as your clinical time. And we do have some parameters around that. So for example, in DNP 851, our project planning course, it is expected that you will be on site bare minimum of 3 times a week. And a lot of times I'm asked, well, why do you want that? Well, we want that because you are actually the project manager. And if you are not there, you can't see all of the things that are happening in the system or bottlenecking the system in order to work through those problems. In DNP 852, our implementation course, you must be on site at least 3 days per week. But the hours will generally be more in implementation than you're spending in planning. And then in dissemination, you do have a certain number of hours, but the most important thing in that course is that you present your scholarly project to the stakeholders within your site. Because at the end of the day, you're not doing a DNP project for Dr. Jefferson or for whatever other instructor is there. You're doing a DNP project because you want to change healthcare in some way and improve healthcare outcomes for your patients and your community. So you are really doing this for them. So you should be presenting this to them. And you have Zoom in the background, so faculty are still attending, and other students at Frontier, faculty, staff, they're all attending your final presentation as well. So we talked about the DNP bound experience where you come to campus and you meet faculty and staff and get to know each other. We want you to feel ready, connected, and inspired. We talked about our 6 practice-oriented didactic courses as well as the DNP project. It says over 3 terms, it's really over 4 because of that project prep course. And if you're ready to take that leap and get your terminal degree with us here at Frontier, the upcoming application deadline is April 2nd for coursework that begins on July 7th, and July 25th is the one after that for coursework that begins October 6th, 2025. Our application is fairly straightforward. It is an online application. When you go to the website, you do have a couple of essay prompts that you must answer. And so we want that to be in your own voice because at the end of the day, only you know why you want to go back and get your DNP. Nobody else can kind of tell you. And then you will upload a copy of your resume or CV. And so this is also where I put in my little shameless, not so shameless plug. Our first impression of you is your application. So you want to make sure that you proofread everything that you write. You make sure that there are no spelling or grammatical errors. You want to make sure that your resume or CV is clean looking, but also it highlights all of your achievements that you had as an RN and an APRN. You want to put all of those things in there. If you've been a published author or you've contributed to some kind of presentation, or you do all of these events in the community, or you precept people, all of those things really need to go on your CV because that is our first impression of you. You will need to provide a health professional reference. We recommend that this is somebody who has been a direct supervisor to you in the past because they know how you work. It's nice. Some people are like, well, I'm going to get my friend to do this and that, but your friend is your friend and they're going to tell us all the good things about you. Whereas somebody who's worked with you can really give that holistic 360-degree view of who you really are. And of course, you'll have to submit your transcripts. We also pride ourselves on having some of the lowest tuition in the country. Our DNP program tuition is $685 per credit hour, which is very, very good when you look at some of the programs, considering all of the skills that you get at the end of the journey. So, how do you begin? Well, everybody who is applying to the DNP program at FNU will need to complete the application, and it is called the Standard Admissions Application. So this includes everybody who is a nurse practitioner or a nurse midwife from outside the university, but it also includes our returning MSN and postgraduate certificate grads who now want to start the DNP. There are not separate application processes for them. It is one big application process. So I will stop sharing and see if there are, or it's actually easier if I don't stop sharing. And if whoever is in the room with me can tell me if there are any questions, or please feel free to unmute and ask me any questions you may have about admissions and the requirements. Ava, are there quite?
When did you say you would recommend starting for um, application process for admission for July of this year? I'm sorry, July of 26.
So if in June, well, if you want to start in July, the application is coming up really quickly, like next week. It is
Okay.
April the 2nd.
Okay.
And yes, and that would be for our summer term. Summer term is July, and then the other term that we have listed up here, the June 25th deadline is for our fall admissions deadline. Any other questions? If not, there's another chance for you to ask questions, so I will just continue. So one of the things that we get a lot of questions about is the actual DNP project. And in the pre-planning or the preparation course, we talk a lot about how you can be successful with your project and what you need to do. And I think it's really important that everyone knows that in these sessions, we provide an opportunity where you meet with faculty one-on-one for an individualized counseling session to discuss potential project ideas. We also do a little bit of this during our bound session, and then they give you feedback. So you are not on an island alone trying to come up with this. You will have to play your part and get some of the background information because faculty aren't in every single site that all of our students are in. So we rely on you to know what the gaps are in your site. But we use that as an opportunity to get to know you a little bit better, for you to tell us about your site so that we can really hone in on what would be a good project for you. In that, we also talk about expectation management. So, for example, if you know that your family has a big family vacation coming up and it is going to fall right in the middle of the planning term, well, maybe we need to change your program of study a little bit so that you're not taking that course there, because otherwise it is going to make all of your assignments in that course late. So That's what we mean when we say expectation management, program of study, decisions, confirming your topic ideas. We talk a lot about work-life balance because it's really important. And a lot of people may not believe, students have told me this, they don't believe in the idea of work-life balance, but it is really important as healthcare is changing and the world is changing and what we're expected to do on a regular basis. All of those things add up to a multitude of stressors. And if we're not finding an outlet, it becomes a problem. We want you to be your best self as a student, and that is why we care so much. Because we know that when you are feeling your best, mentally, physically, then it translates into your assignments as well as into your overall learning. We'll talk about the clinical site approval form, which is how you submit your site to be approved for the project for credentialing purposes. And in that session, we also discuss IRB or Institutional Review Board and whether or not you need to check with your site to see if you have to undergo that. So Henry Ford was a pioneer, and we like to look at this the same as the DNP program. You don't know what you don't know until you get in it and you do it, because Henry Ford had a vision. And so the quote says, if I asked people what they wanted, they would have said faster horses. They never would have said, let's have a car. The idea of a car didn't exist. And that's exactly what your DNP program at Frontier does for you. I have testimonial after testimonial from DNP students who talk about just how valuable the DNP program was in shaping either their practice, they either become an entrepreneur or they get more involved in policy work because policy work is so important, but they also can maybe sometimes get leadership roles in their organization. There are a multitude of things that you can do with a DNP degree. The sky is the limit. It's what you want to do with it. So, as you plan ahead to begin our program, one of the things that I always ask people to consider is, do I even have a potential clinical site? If you're working in a clinical site, in a hospital, wherever it is that you're working, it is easiest generally, not always, but most often, you want to implement your DNP quality improvement project within your workplace. But it's also important to know that your project can be implemented while you're in the RN role or the APRN role. So you do not have to be actively working as a nurse practitioner or a midwife. You can still have that certification, but still be working in the RN role and accomplish your project. You can also volunteer at a site, but if you are working, we like for you to take that into consideration because remember, in one of the previous slides, I told you that you have to be on site a minimum of 3 days per week. So, do you have an extra 3 days to be on site for 8 to 10 hours, managing a project, plus working a full-time job, plus caring for your family, et cetera, et cetera? Those are things that I want you to think about. And then you also want to think about when you would potentially be starting a new job. There are some people who transition into their APRN role, but we know as somebody who is an APRN, transitioning into practice is challenging. It requires you to learn new systems, not just the computer system, but the flow of the clinic. It requires you to really take a deep dive back into concepts you may have learned, but now you're actively employing them. I like to tell people when I graduated, the joke was when you finish as an APRN, it's going to take at least 1 year for you to be fully comfortable in the role. That's actually false. It takes you at least 2 to 3 years to feel really good and confident in the role. And so when you consider that you could potentially be a new graduate or starting a whole new role in a place that you don't know very well, you have to consider the time frame for you to get oriented, the time frame for you to get to know the people in the clinic, but also to know their processes. You don't want to come into a place and now start leading something and you don't really know all the nuances, is the point. So, you don't want to start a new job at the exact same time you're starting your project. So, those are things that we want you to think about. And are you anticipating any major life events? Are you wanting to potentially grow your family? Will you be moving to a new state? Will you be caring for a loved one? Sometimes we don't know these things in advance. There are things that pop up in all of our lives, but as best we can, we try to mitigate the stress by prepping for them in advance. And then what does your work schedule look like? How much time, like I said, it all ties in. That's what I mean, work-life balance. Our program is very doable, but we like for you to be able to consider all the factors, and we help you to do that. This is just an example of one of our alumni, Stephanie Mitchell, who has been trying to open up a birth sanctuary in Alabama, and she's renovating a historic landmark into a birth center. And so this is phenomenal because Stephanie went through our midwifery program and then went back to get her DNP with us. And it was the DNP that gave her enough courage to go ahead and want to, not just the courage, but the further her passion and drive to open up a birth center to actually care for women in that area. And she's also now teaching or assisting with course development in a midwifery program. So your DNP, as I said at the beginning, just tying all this together allows you to do so much and is still a terminal degree. The distance between who I am and who I want to be is separated only by my actions and words. There are a lot of people who say that they want to advance their education. There are a lot of people who have goals and dreams, but not all of those people actually put those things into action. And so you can be a thinker or you can be a doer. And we actually want you to be a doer and make your dream a reality by getting your terminal degree here at FNU. One thing we know for certain, there will be obstacles. There will be doubters. There will be people who will say, why in the world are you getting your DNP when you don't necessarily need it right now? There will be mistakes. We are all perfectly imperfect. We make mistakes. It is okay. We use that as an opportunity to learn and grow. But with hard work and dare I say perseverance, there are no limits, and there will be no limits to you getting your DNP. So success does not come to you. You go to it. You can scan this QR code on this slide if you have would like to follow up with anything that we've talked about here, but I'm going to also give you an opportunity to ask more questions. If you have specific questions about financial aid, we encourage you to reach out to financial aid at frontier.edu. And if you have admissions questions, we encourage you to reach out to FNU admissions at frontier.edu. So I am going to stop screen sharing, and now you can either unmute and ask any additional questions you have for me or one of the admissions reps. There are no questions. I can't believe I answered all things in this session.
Yeah, I have a question. This is Richard Ver. How you doing, Doctor
Hi,
Jefferson?
how are you?
Good. I start my new job. Clay just graduated in October. I sent you an email,
Yes.
and you answered me. So I start April 28th with an ACT team in
Hmm.
North Carolina. Now, I'm going to wait till the next term, October, because like you said, I should just get acclimated, get used to this job. So it's not a hospital. I'm more on the field. Now, would that be an issue? Would that cause a problem? Like starting working with a project with an act team in this
It would
program?
not. It depends. So one of the things we don't talk about on this session, but we become very intentional about is volume. All of our DNP projects are population health projects. So as long as you know what your volume potentially looks like, how many patients you see, where there are gaps, because the whole project is actually driven by the needs of the site. They're not they're not generally passion projects, which means wherever it is that you're working, they may have a project that they want you to work on, and you want to go with the path of least resistance and work on what they ask you.
Okay. And also, I guess you said that once I submit my application, I would have to submit something
Yes,
additional so I can get,
correct. And
so I don't have
they
to
would,
wait for return, right?
yes, once you submit your application and um, it gets reviewed by faculty. And then once you get accepted into the university, and this is for anybody, um, then there are enrollment coordinators who are assigned to help you, and they kind of walk you through the steps of what happens next, how you register for bound, if you need to petition for a different bound because you've attended Frontier in the last couple of years, they will assist you with that process.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for being brave and unmuting.
Hello, I have a question. My name is
Hi.
Marquita.
Hi,
Um,
Marquita.
I, I I would be a returning student. So I have a question about the three classes
Mhm.
that I would be able to use until the end of 26.
Mhm.
Does that mean I would need to be in the program by the end of 26, or I need to have completed the program and graduated by then?
No, that means that you would have to start in October 2026 at the latest in order for us to count those courses. And when you say you're a
Okay.
returning student, you were talking about evidence-based practice, epi and biostats, and principles of independent practice, right? Like
Yes.
you did not start our DNP program in the past, just MSN program.
No, I did start the DNP program and I had two classes left, just the project. So I
Okay.
don't know if I would even be eligible to just come back into that or what I would need to do.
So it would depend on the time frame in which your previous courses were taken. So, for example, if you started our DNP program in 2018 and took like three courses and then you left, your courses are only valid for 5 years, honestly. So, if you started in 2018 and now you're coming back, then I would be the person who looks at that. But you can always send me an email and I could tell you kind of what that looks like. Kara.jefferson@frontier.edu.
Okay,
And I'll type that in the chat just so that you have it.
thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I have one more, Dr.
Okay.
Jefferson. Yeah, I know you answered it, but I just want to reiterate. I just graduated in October of 2024 as a psychiatric mental health nurse practitioner. Now, I don't believe I have those courses, so I will come in as a post um, graduate DNP, correct? Not the.
Yes, correct. So technically, your application, you're just coming in as an applicant. And
Okay.
then you will follow the postmaster's DNP plan of study, but in a weird, complicated way for the purposes of bound, you would be considered a companion student. It's a whole big convoluted situation, but I understand it. And no matter what, the most important thing is your program of study. It's not whether or not it's postmasters or companion. It's really these are the courses that you have to take. And if you didn't take those three courses, then your program of study will consist of all 30 credit hours.
Now I can go part-time, correct?
You
It's
can
not.
go part-time, correct?
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do have one more question. I'm
Okay.
currently a PGC student, excuse me,
Mhm.
and I was wondering if those first 3 semesters, if you're looking at the full-time plan, are more didactic and not the project. Could I take those concurrently with like while I'm doing clinicals to finish up my PGC? Can I take those concurrently, or is it
Un
you're kind of one or the other?
It's unfortunately whatever program that you're in Frontier, our system does not allow you to be in. We don't, and our policies don't allow you to be in concurrent programs at the same time. So you would have to finish up your MSN program and then apply for the DNP program. Well,
Okay.
technically, if you're PGC, that means that you already are an APRN.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you can apply right now. You don't have to wait. You can apply for the next deadline if you'll be finished with those other courses, is my point. because
When you
you
say other
already have.
courses, so I'm already a pediatric nurse practitioner, but I'm going, like I said, I'm a PGC to get my psychiatric mental health. So I was thinking about taking like one class at a time during my 3 semesters of clinicals for the PGC program.
Yeah,
Can't do
that's
that.
not allowed, unfortunately. No, not yet.
Okay. Okay. Thank you.
But I appreciate the question. It gives me something to think about.
I have one more.
Keep
Um,
going.
I have to wait till April 3rd, right, to apply for October term, or can I do that now?
That is an ad. Can someone from admissions, Richard, can you?
Yeah, hello, everybody. Yes, it's Richard from admissions, and you would want to apply for the October term. That fall application will open up April 3rd, so next Thursday. And then the deadline to get all the documents in is June 25th. And then coursework, as you seem to have mentioned, is October 6th for the fall 2025 term.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome, sir.
Hey, Dr. Jefferson. I'm also enrolled right now in one of the PGC programs. This might be a question for the admissions folks. Is it possible to apply? Do you need to wait for the cycle to apply? Like I would be finishing in winter of next year, so I can't start a DNP until after that. Would I need to wait to apply until like November or whenever that cycle is for spring quarter admissions?
Yes, because right now,
Okay.
right, Richard? Spring is not
Yeah,
open.
yes, that's accurate. That's correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
And the application process is the same regardless of whether you've been a student before.
Correct.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? I know that Richard and the rest of the team would be happy to answer any admissions questions after the fact. So if you think about something, they have just, there you go. We're on it. We're like on the same wavelength. He just put in the chat how they can be reached, and I put my email in the chat too. If you have other questions about the DNP program, and I'm happy to meet with anybody who needs a meeting. So thank you so much for giving us your time this evening, and I hope everybody has a good rest of the day.